I'm sick for one frickin' week, dude. And we have Donald Trump planning the complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza as just one of many news stories of this caliber. I leave this country, okay, in your guys' hands to babysit for 1 week while I'm out sick, and this happens, we gotta have a talk, all right? We gotta have a talk. I gotta be able to take a week off without an ethnic cleansing promise, okay? Of course, that would require the complete overturning of not only our incumbent administration, but also their most significant, their most practical opponent. But that's besides the point, all right? You guys gotta do better, okay? Of course, I'm being facetious and joking over extremely dire news, but that's sometimes how I cope. So, Donald Trump has been suggesting that a solution to this whole Israel-Gaza conflict, right? That pesky little problem that's been going on for decades, right? One solution that he proposes is let's just get rid of all the people in Gaza. You know, ethnic cleansing. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yes, Donald Trump has said that under U.S. authority, the United States of America should quote-unquote take Gaza, is his official position on the matter. Now, remember on the campaign trail when criticism of the Democratic Party, of Kamala Harris, of Joe Biden, over their Gaza-Israel policy was a primary criticism levied against them by the left such as myself, right? However, remember how every single time, at least I, tried to add the caveat that Donald Trump would clearly be worse, right? That is why it is so embarrassing that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, our only hope of, standing against this worst outcome, are themselves also genocidal maniacs. Well, they continued to be genocidal maniacs to the very end, contributing to their loss, but they lost so badly. Kamala Harris lost so badly, I don't think it's solely due to her Israel-Gaza position. And now we get to have even worse. What does even worse look like? Well, it is not aiding and abetting, funding, outright supporting a genocide being committed by one of our closest allies in the world, running interference for them, running a collaborated, well-organized media campaign, propaganda campaign to justify their war crimes, manufactured consent, that classic saying. What's worse is actively contributing to it ourselves in a way that pales in comparison even to what we were doing before. So here's a recap of what is going on lately. Trump's plan is to remove Palestinians from Gaza and instead for the United States of America to essentially take control of it in one form or another and engage in the reconstruction of Gaza for our own personal nefarious purposes. He even said recently when asked by a reporter, should under his plan this occur, would Palestinians have the right to return? He responded, no, they would not. So it is a complete and total ethnic cleansing campaign that he is lobbying against Palestinians in Gaza. He is threatening the ceasefire as we speak right now. That's another thing we'll get into. And is overall appearing, as we all expected, to be Benjamin Netanyahu's best buddy in the White House and even more crazy, overtly genocidal than his predecessor. This is concurrent with many Israeli breaches of the sitting ceasefire as it exists, a ceasefire that I warned was going to be extremely flimsy and shaky from the beginning, and Israel was going to keep pressing the buttons of exactly what are they allowed to get away with for the ceasefire, how far can they go in breaching it while Hamas still honors their side of the deal, right? That was always going to be a question, and we're learning a bit about it right now. Of course, Israel is still killing people in Gaza by air raids and shootings. Of course, they're still blocking heavy equipment to remove the rubble. 600 aid trucks were to be allowed in daily, but only 70% are making it through due to, of course, Israeli blockages. 200,000 tents were to be allowed in, and only 10% have been allowed in so far. 50 patients were supposed to be allowed to leave for treatment, and less than 15% have been allowed to leave. So the freedom of movement for aid and individuals has not occurred by the ceasefire standards, and of course, the killings have continued on Israel's part. So is it really a ceasefire if they haven't ceased firing? Not really. However, it is a lessened firing period, and so we are still using the term ceasefire, and there are still plans to continue forward with plans associated with the ceasefire because we don't want to use the language of outright war again. Hamas has said it will halt its captive releases until Israel complies with the terms of the ceasefire, which they haven't done and won't do. Of course, Western media will always lead with Hamas stopping the hostage exchange processes and stuff, not indicate that it's in response to Israeli breaches of the ceasefire until like the 8th paragraph or whatever. That's why I'm using Al Jazeera, not NBC or CBS or anything. Trump on board with Netanyahu's depopulation plan for Gaza, analyst says. All sides have a little bit of leverage as another row erupts over the Gaza ceasefire, but the U.S. and Israeli sides are in a stronger position than Hamas. Hamas is hoping that pressure would build inside Israel by Saturday, and the momentum from the release of hostages would build and the public would pressure Netanyahu and Trump to come to terms. Trump has proven himself easy to manipulate but difficult to predict, adding that the U.S. president wanted the ceasefire before coming into office, and Netanyahu was dragged kicking and screaming to that agreement. But Trump has now changed his rhetoric. Netanyahu allowed the release of some hostages and then went to Washington to talk to Trump himself, and he got Trump to agree to the terms. His war goals are the destruction of Gaza, the displacement of the population, and the elimination of Hamas. Rahman said Israel managed to destroy much of Gaza but has failed in displacing its population and destroying Hamas, so Netanyahu has now gotten Trump on board with the depopulation campaign. This isn't surprising that Trump has changed his rhetoric so quickly after being put into office. He's a populist. He knows to say on the campaign trail what people want to hear, and then when he's in power, he knows to do the bidding of his closest allies, or at least the people he wants to be his closest allies, and Benjamin Netanyahu is one of them. It's very simple. There's also a reason why Donald Trump was Benjamin Netanyahu's favored candidate on the campaign trail, despite the fact that Donald Trump was rhetorically in favor of a ceasefire, always with very dubious language, by the way. For example, his premier phrase on the issue on the campaign trail was, Israel needs to finish the job. Geez, I wonder what that means. Well, now he's telling us what it means now that he's in the position. It means kick the Palestinians out of there. Israeli and American complete takeover of the Strip. Cool. Amazing. Beautiful. The anti-war candidate, by the way, the anti-war guy. And now, of course, Donald Trump is meeting with allies in the region to try and oversee this mass displacement, mass ethnic cleansing campaign. This is how it always happens. Trump says something beyond the pale ridiculous that makes most of us scoff at the sheer audacity of it. Really? Complete displacement of the Palestinian people is the initial reaction. And then we talk about it for a little bit because it's so ridiculous and beyond the pale ridiculous and outright evil. And then he starts taking actions to actually make it happen because we are experiencing a global trend towards fascism. And so, of course, there are allies ready to collaborate with these ridiculous things. King Abdullah II, however, has reiterated Jordan's stance against displacing Palestinians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank during his meeting with Trump. Achieving just peace on the basis of the two-state solution is the way to ensure regional stability. This requires U.S. leadership. President Trump is a man of peace. He's advocating for the complete ethnic cleansing of people in the region. He was instrumental in securing the Gaza ceasefire, and now he is outright in favor of Israel breaching the ceasefire. We look to the U.S. and all stakeholders in ensuring it holds. Okay, King Abdullah II playing double agent as if we can't see right through it. How do you move 2 million people? Where do you move them? How do you feed and house them? These are huge, huge logistical problems, and who's going to pay for it? That's the thing, though. Trump doesn't care about the logistical problems. Then Yahoo doesn't care about the logistical problems. The fact that the answer to that question is a very, very awkward silence is the point. Oh, what do we do with 2 million people? Just, they can just go away. Well, what exactly does that mean? Where? How are you going to support them? How are you going to house them? How are you going to feed them? Oh, we'll just not. And they'll just go away. That's the point. There'll be land in Egypt where Palestinians will live, saying he's sure he'll work out something with Egypt. So he hasn't worked out something with Egypt. Of course not. Why am I pretending that this guy says anything before having a plan? We're not going to buy Gaza. We're going to have it. We're going to keep it. We'll cherish it. We're going to have it. It's going to be ours. Okay. King Abdullah said Arab states will come to the U.S. with a plan without explicitly supporting or opposing Trump's Gaza takeover. Asked about Israel's plans to annex the occupied West Bank, Trump responded, that is going to work out. Jordan's monarch said his country is ready to take in 2,000 sick Palestinian children from Gaza. It's interesting that King Abdullah didn't exactly give his direct response like he has been over the last several weeks because he knows it wouldn't be too wise to do that in front of Trump, in front of the cameras, but the position of Jordan has been quite clear that Gaza is going to remain Palestinian land, that Palestinians are not going to leave. Awesome how the debate, so to speak, on Gaza now is a debate between one overtly genocidal position and kinda the next. Should we completely ethnically cleanse the region and take over ourselves so we can turn it into a tourist destination? Or should we not and just continue to give Israel the means of genocide, the weapons and the funds and the propaganda campaigns to continue to do what they've been doing for so long now? Like, I'm trying so hard, of course, to maintain the objectively true position of, hey, Palestinians are human beings and they belong there and they shouldn't be killed or subjugated for being there. But the conversation isn't there. The conversation wasn't there even when the Democrats were in power. And now we have an absolute insane buffoon who gets a hard on for any and all ounce of attention he can get. So of course he says the most ridiculous things imaginable and just pretends to run on them as if they're serious. And before too long, the ridiculous statement that he said just as a soundbite becomes a real policy goal because that's just how the unified global fascist movement operates now. I'm talking about how, of course, Trump's displacement plan is immoral and ridiculous and stupid and completely unrealistic, and I'm already using words like unrealistic when I should be talking more about the absurd evil of it, but there's only so many times I can say, no, that is so obviously beyond the pale ridiculous. This is a problem that media has as well, right? Like, MSNBC, CBS, CNN, whatever left-wing media apparatus you want to mention, right? They've almost certainly called this like a Gaza, redevelopment plan or something, right? Something to that effect, and not the overtly genocidal ethnic cleansing campaign, ethnic cleansing promise it genuinely is. Like, I feel like I need to start explaining why genocide and ethnic cleansing are bad at this point, right? I feel like we have reached that level of political analysis because what else is there more to talk about, right? I could talk about what I've been talking about, the specific machinations of exactly what they're doing and how they're going to try and make this happen, but doing that even from a obviously this is evil point of view makes me feel like scum because that's just where the conversation is now. Okay, it is there's no room for the humanity of the people who are actually being talked about here as if their existence is the problem. I also want to take the opportunity to dig at liberals right now who cried wolf so much during the Biden era of the genocide of Palestinians, because people like me, people on the left, we didn't protest Republicans, right? It's because they weren't the ones in charge. Now they are, and now they are so clearly doing worse than even Biden did. And now we're speaking up against it. Turns out that's how it works. And you just deflected for a genocidal maniac for over a year for no real reason. Trump told reporters that there is nothing to buy with regard to his plan for the U.S. to take ownership of Gaza, but instead the U.S. would take or have the territory. Yeah, that's how ownership works. You just kind of end up with the thing. That makes sense. That's honestly, I think, probably Trump's dumbass way of kind of acknowledging the absolute ludicrous, disproportionate amount of power that Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu has in the conflict. Benjamin Netanyahu, America will just have Gaza because, of course, Israel could just give us Gaza. I mean, what are you talking about? They are basically in complete ownership of it anyway. I mean, have you seen what they've been doing the last year and a half? I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, they'll just give it to us. I mean, they're bombing the shit out of it anyway. They'll just give it to us. It's fine.
You've said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What is that?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it.
Reporter asks, what does that mean? That's what we've all been asking for years, man.
A tremendous asset for the Middle East. And you're going to have peace. It's going to bring peace in the Middle East. Gaza, the way it is right now, every 10 years, you're going to have the same thing happening. I've watched it so long. All the death and destruction of Gaza.
Yeah, who's doing that death and destruction in Gaza, Donald? Who's doing that? Why is it a war-torn country?
Civilization's been wiped out in Gaza.
Who did that? Did they do that to themselves? That's weird. That doesn't sound right. Who did that, Don?
No, it's going to be a tremendous thing. It's fronting on the sea. It's going to be a great economic development job. It's going to put people to work, a lot of people to work, and those people are all going to be from the Middle East.
Those people are all going to be from the Middle East, he says, after he said that Palestinians would not have the right to return. So Israel gets to move in and claim it as their own territory, right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Just giving Israel complete and total victory in their genocidal campaign. Okay, cool. Gotcha.
So when you hear the pushback from the Middle East, what do you think?
I don't hear that much pushback. A lot of people thought it was a great idea. Really, a lot of people. And I'm not talking about big money for I just think it would be stabilized if the United States owns the Gaza Strip. If people aren't living in the Gaza Strip and Hamas isn't there because nobody's there, people aren't there, nobody's going to be there. And later on, it can be developed. You'll give some to Saudi Arabia.
So you're not saying U.S. troops?
No, you don't need no, Israel will watch it. Okay. Because it's right next to Israel.
Now, critics have called this effectively ethnic cleansing of...
Well, critics have said that because it's true. That's the dictionary definition, Mr. NBC. Can we stop being so nice, by the way? I say we as if I am ideologically aligned with NBC News. Of course, I'm not. But can opponents to this, theoretical opponents to this even, can we stop being so nice? Can we stop saying, oh, critics say it's ethnic cleansing? It's ethnic cleansing. Can we actually, can we not say Trump discusses proposal for future of Gaza Strip and instead say what's actually happening? Trump promises ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza. Because that is actually the freaking truth, man. This sort of neutral, biased language that is naturally biased in favor of the more radical position. That's how neutrality works, okay? If you are taking a neutral tone between two different positions, but one of those positions is insane, you are giving validity to that insane position, okay? This is why the Overton window has moved so far ridiculously to the right, so far ridiculously towards fascism over the last decades, over my entire adult life, and even before then, is because of media posturing like this. Just call it what it is. It fits the dictionary definition of ethnic cleansing. Just call it that. You don't have to say critics have said it's ethnic cleansing. It is. You're not taking a side here. You're reporting the facts, but you're too scared to report the facts when it puts you in direct opposition to the incumbent power. Spineless news, dude. Spineless. So much complicity in these terrible crimes against humanity.